Kamala Harris has dropped out of the 2020 Democrat presidential election. Why did her campaign fail, and who's left for the 2020 Democrats? Hey everybody, I'm Chad Hasty, host of the Chad Hasty Show, which airs weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Well, over the last several weeks, it's become very apparent that Kamala Harris's campaign was absolutely in a nosedive. And on Tuesday, she announced that she's done. She's hanging it up. She's no longer a candidate for the Democrat nomination for president. So who is still in the race? Well, you've got still quite a few people who are technically still running. The top tier candidates include, of course, the former Vice President Joe Biden. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a bump in the polls from folks who were, maybe on the fence between him and Kamala Harris, or the 4% of people who are in favor of Kamala Harris if they go to Joe Biden, or maybe they go to Bernie Sanders, or maybe Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. Pete Buttigieg, he's right up there in the top tier of candidates. I actually think the top tier goes something like this: Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, 2 or 3. There's really not much of a difference between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And then you got Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who is on the rise, continues to be on the rise in Iowa, New Hampshire, and some of the early states. Then you have the rest of the candidates. You're looking at people like Cory Booker, who is still in this thing. Amy Klobuchar, who is still in this thing. Oh, yeah, Michael Bloomberg, who just announced that he's jumping into the race. Michael Bennet, who you probably haven't heard much about. Julian Castro, who is still running for some odd reason. John Delaney is still running for president. Tulsi Gabbard is still running for president. Deval Patrick, Tom Steyer, Marianne Williamson, and Andrew Yang still in the race. So this thing is narrowed down a little bit. You have the top tier, and then you've got really the bottom tier. There's not really a middle tier in this entire thing. I still think there's a little bit of room maybe for someone like an Amy Klobuchar to rise in this and maybe try to steal some of Mayor Pete Buttigieg's momentum, but it's going to take a lot in order for that to happen. The failure of Kamala Harris's campaign doesn't completely shock me, but it took quite the dive. There were a lot of folks on the Democrat side who were hoping that Kamala Harris would be the next big thing, that she would run with the Obama torch in 2020, and then she actually started running for president. On paper, Kamala Harris is, an impressive candidate. In reality, she's not impressive. Kamala Harris was cringeworthy. Kamala Harris was not likable, did not come across as genuine at all. People just didn't like Kamala Harris. Tulsi Gabbard destroyed her on the debate stage. She was just kind of a walking cringe moment during the debates, who laughed at herself, that people really did not like, and her campaign was plagued from almost the very beginning. It had a lot of problems. She wasn't even doing well in her home state of California. So, it doesn't shock me that she has dropped out. It does surprise me that she dropped out before the next debate. I figured that she'd give it at least one more debate before wrapping this whole thing up. It'll be interesting to see where her voters go. She didn't have a lot of voters. She didn't have a lot of support. So where do they go? Do they go for the safe space of Joe Biden? Do they go towards a Cory Booker, perhaps? Does Cory Booker get helped out by any of this? What about Pete Buttigieg? It'll be interesting to see where her votes go. I don't think they'll go towards a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, though I could be wrong on that. Maybe some of the female vote who just want to vote for a female, maybe they go towards an Elizabeth Warren. But it'll be interesting. It's not going to have a great impact on the race. Not until you see a Bernie drop out, or an Elizabeth Warren drop out, or even a Buttigieg drop out will this have a great impact. But it is something interesting to watch. Kamala Harris, I guess you tried your best. I don't know. It wasn't a good campaign at all. You'll go back to the Senate, I guess, making yourself laugh. So I guess you have that going for you. Tune in to the Chad Hasty Show weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time. News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO.